Good evening. We're going to call tonight's board meeting to order. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. United States of America. Great, we can call attendance. Ms. Berkmeyer, here. Mr. Green,
Present.
Mr. Richards.
Here.
Mr. Moses,
Here.
Mr. DeRue.
Here.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Here.
Ms. Knox here. Okay. And I will accept a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second. Go ahead, Mr. Moses. Okay, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. So tonight we have kind of an exciting event. We have Mr. Morissette and his friends and family here tonight to be recognized for his 32 years of service to Anchor Bay and as a wrestling coach. So I'm gonna give the floor to Mr. Holston.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Don Holston. I'm the Athletic Director, Assistant Principal for Anchor Bay High School. First, I'd like to thank the Board of Education for the time tonight to recognize Jim Morissette. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you and your continued support for our coaches and athletes as a board. We appreciate you very much. Tonight, we're here to recognize and celebrate a phenomenal coaching career. Jim Morissette is a community guy. He graduated from Anchor Bay High School in 1981 and has been a community member ever since. His coaching career spans nearly 4 decades. Over his 37 years of coaching wrestling, 32 has been the head coach of the Tars. Over this time, he has prided himself with developing great wrestlers, but more importantly, great men of character. His coaching efforts went well beyond the mat, having his team often volunteer in the community at events such as Winterfest, Bayarama, as well as many, many more. His team accomplishments are equally impressive as his off-the-mat coaching. Athletics, by its very nature, is stats-driven. So let me share some stats about Coach Morissette over the last 32 years. 811 career dual meet victories, first all-time in Division I. League championships, 21 league championships won by Coach Morissette. A 6-time winner of the Macomb County Tournament of Champions, also tied for first all time. 17 district championships, 3 regional championships, a state semifinalist in 2015 as a team, a 12-time regional coach of the year, and a 2020 Michigan Wrestling Association Hall of Fame inductee. Some of the individual accomplishments by some of his wrestlers: over 250 individual state qualifiers, over 200 individual state placers, 3 individual state champions, and 4 high school wrestlers who have earned college All-American honors. Currently in high school athletics, the life expectancy for someone coaching a sport averages 6 to 10 years. If I have a coach that goes beyond that, I'm really, really happy. The reason for this is legitimate. Coaching comes with sacrificing family time or events. Jim has made those sacrifices over the last 32 years. I would like to take this moment to publicly thank Jim for all of his years of service and congratulate him on his success throughout the years. Jim, you will certainly be missed, but you have left a legacy in the Anchor Bay program that will live on for years to come. Congratulations on your retirement. Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to quickly add a few words to what Mr. Holston said. As a TAR parent and a parent of a wrestler, Coach Jimmy has been nothing short of phenomenal. I'm actually getting a little choked up, and I know Ethan, my son, would be here, but he has finals today, or he would definitely be here. He makes all the players feel like family, and I've never seen a coach just so warm and so in touch with his players and or his athletes and what they're doing, and getting them to volunteer, really turning them into young men, finding their strengths. You'd see one of them. I know one time my son coming off the mat, and it was an opponent he had gone up against before and he had lost previously, and he won. And the first person he went to was Coach Jimmy. He raises his hand, runs to Jimmy, huge hug. And that, they had this moment. So there was this connection with all of his wrestlers, and he goes above and beyond for his athletes and their families. And it's a huge commitment. So thank you, Jimmy, from our family and the whole Tarvis family. And I know we'll see you around town because you're never leaving. So.
We'll move next to a hearing of the public. I don't have any submissions for tonight. So next we have the superintendent's update.
Okay, wanted to update the board on where we are at with the bond program so far. What we've been working on over the last several months really is we've been meeting with each of the teachers for their areas. We've been visiting different locations for them to get ideas. And as we've been working through sections of the building, part of what we've been doing, as we're going to touch many areas, is the logistics of how do we phase the projects, how do we move things along. So this is just an example of, for every single area that's going to be worked on or people are going to be moved, we kind of have been staging it and color coding it based off of which phase it's going to be and when people have to move, so that we can, as we get ready to go to bid, and we'll talk about that in the last slide, of how will we kind of structure things so that we can, one, still operate as a school, and two, kind of save money as much as possible as we go through the bond. So this is just an example of, it starts on the left of the room number, who's currently in there, what's the program, and then it works through each of the years, because there's 2 years of work. So it's fall and winter for each of the school years, and then it works through and then what it's going to end up being, so that we could make sure that we're not to a minimum amount, are we moving people more than once? We know everybody in phase one has to move more than once because their new area is not set yet. So it's just a fact of the matter. The benefit is they get their new area first. The detriment is they have to move twice. So that same color coding goes with what you see here. So this is, we've met with most of the areas for the main area of the high school. What we're working on now is, this is going to be the addition. It's the blue area. So we've worked that out. So the blue area will be vacated. We still will have access for the class, for the construction class in the construction room. We'll have a barrier at the end of the hall here. So then that first phase, the plan is to begin in September. The rationale being that if we can begin that work outside the peak construction season for schools, then we should hopefully be, and because we can give access to the area and still maintain the security envelope of the school, then they can have total access of that. Then in phase two, then this area right here, they will end up over the summer tying in, this will be do all the work in order to tie it into the outdoor area, because we're expanding the construction area all the way out to the back here. So that's phase one. Then we're still working on the other phases. There's still some logistics going on. I just want to give you an idea of where we're at. We've made it through the main portion of the building. One of the areas with the weight room, as we're redoing that, we're going to redo the wrestling room, and that will be upgraded, as well as the weight room. And so this will be the athletic area. And then now what we've begun to do is work into the tower areas and each of the upstairs and down. So we're still working through those. As part of that first phase, what you'll see is we've already kind of figured out where we're going to have our laydown area, our staging areas, and where the fencing will go. So this is basically what you can expect to see in the fall. Then again, we're working through the logistics of the other areas, just to make sure that everybody they'll be able to settle into an area, and really looking at costs and looking at what our layout. So we still have some visits to come up for, like, the yellow area here is the health occupations area. So they made a visit to SC4 on Friday, and they are still looking at like ideas for so we have some just kind of preliminary layouts that we're working on, and I'll share some of those with you for some other areas. For example, our mock courtroom, what we're looking at is, you see in the lower left-hand corner, that's the concept we're working with. We're unlike a traditional like courtroom you'd see in movies or on TV. None of that will be totally built in. We're making everything so it'll be portable. We can move it around. You can see some examples of the furniture, and there will be technology. And basically that will allow us to have a functional space. They can use it as their classroom. They can move things around based on how they want to do that. And then if we need it for some other purpose, we'll have the ability to flex that space. So this is a larger, the concept we're using in a lot of areas is like this. It's 2 classrooms. Right now they have, the walls in between are just drywall. They're not blocked. So we'll put in some accordion walls where they can divide the space if they want to, if we need it, or we can leave it open if we want to use it as a large area. So again, we're just providing maximum flexibility of space while keeping costs in line, and then allowing us to add programs. But then also, if in a few years, if we change to something else, then we're not tied into that, because most of it will be furniture. Same thing with the media center at the high school. Our plan is to make this a hub of the school. So again, most of this is going to be furniture. There will be obviously paint and some other things, but you won't see a lot of construction beyond. So the basic concept now is to divide the media center into different areas. So what you have over here, all of the books, we've done an analysis, we'll be able to put the books into this area on the left, and then you'll see there'll be an accordion wall. It'll actually be a glass wall that opens up. So that if we wanted a quiet space and there's a classroom in there, then we can close the wall and then they won't hear what's on the other side. So now they can bring the middle section will be mostly independent, like student areas. Again, all this will be able to be moved, and then we'll have larger group areas. So this will be a classroom area. Then this will have a group huddle area. The 4 offices in each corner will be quiet work areas. They'll have separate technology. So if a teacher wants to have a class, break them into groups, then that teacher they'll have a separate screen where they can put a PowerPoint or a video or a timer and have that just for those groups to work in small groups. And what this furniture looks like, this is a concept we took from a visit where you can see it's really the same furniture in the top 2 pictures. So the furniture in this is, again, all on wheels, so it can face in if you want one class. And then here it's the same furniture, but now it faces out if you want to divide them into groups. This is an example down here in the lower left-hand corner of the accordion wall. So it'll be fully glass, and then it'll open up into, if we're having something, for example, when we did the college fair, we had so many, a career fair, I should say. We had so many people here for that we had to put use space in the media center, but instead of having them packed together, we'll be able to open it up, move the furniture out, have those tables there. So again, we can kind of keep the flexibility of the space. This is right now the concept we're working with on the medical sciences area. So this was actually 4 classrooms. Currently, it's 4 classrooms and 2 storage areas at the end. So we are basically making this into 3 classrooms, 1 for each of the medical sciences and then 1 for EMT. They will have storage areas as well. And then in the middle, they will have some mock rooms, and they can do their observations for their certifications and so on. So this is just a base concept. And again, we'll keep refining this as it goes forward. Graphic arts, we were looking because as we're putting things in the area, so we're relocating graphic arts out of what will be the engineering wing into the arts wing. And so we went through, we looked at the equipment that they have, measured it out for the space, met with the teacher, and they were able to figure out this is the best layout that the teacher wanted. Everything fits, everything kind of fills that space, and it gives them a nice, you have basically a classroom to the right, and then they have a work area for their print shop things and everything in a separate room. We're also looking at, we're looking at how to organize our computer labs. You're just seeing a variety of options on, do we arrange computers like this? Do we arrange them in pods? Do we arrange them in other work groups? And so we're just looking at different concepts because most of the classrooms are along the same size. So how does that work for each of the areas? And then how will the technology be needed to kind of support that? So ultimately, this is kind of what we're looking at. There's 3 distinct phases of this. Those are in sub phases. So phase 1 is the engineering. That was the blue area. Then the wood shop will be done. It's kind of a mini phase in the summer. And then the band area and the teacher workroom that's down the hall, that will come in the end of phase 1. Then phase 2 will be the health and human services wing. The first set of offices that will be in the career areas, ROTC and graphic arts. Then the second half of phase 2 will be the front entrance. We'll have the security. We'll have some light renovations that go into that, into different areas. And then phase 3 will wrap up with the media center, the athletic areas, counseling, and then the end of that will be just any other projects that either come up along the way or like branding. Right now, we know the entrance to each of the wings, they're just kind of nondescript. So we want to do some things that'll kind of brand it to make, so this is health, this is art, this is business, this is engineering, so that people know each of those areas. we're taking off the already color coding that goes on because right now lockers in the freshman area are blue. Then we have purple, we have reddish, green, and so on. So we're going to coordinate that with those same colors. So each of those areas will be themed to correspond to those colors. What you're going to see is, you can see the third column there is when we're planning to go out to bid. So phase one, our goal is to have that out to bid by June 21st. And then in August, we would bring that before the board. And we'll bid that out as 3 phases. It could be the same vendor that bids on all of them, or it could be separate. And so we expect that the first portion of that will come to the board in August, and then you'll see the other phases as they come through. But these will be sizable chunks of the high school project as they come through. Right now, we're conservatively estimating we're close to our target. We're within contingency. But again, as we kind of whittle down these areas, our goal is to make sure that we're on time and under budget, because we have a long way to go for the overall bond. Questions or thoughts?
Megan, do you have anything to say about these? I mean, other than you're leaving, but it's kind of a bummer, but.
Yeah.
Does the idea look pretty cool?
It does, yeah, I think it'd be very. Sorry. I just think it'd be very useful for everybody, especially the incoming freshmen, because I remember how scary it was walking into a huge building with a bunch of upperclassmen. So I feel like having specific zones for everything you need would be very useful for them.
The only other, I'm sorry. The only other thing I wanted to point out just before we move on to the next thing, I just want, in case you didn't see your email, we did interviews for the school safety position, the liaison position. It is in the consent agenda under the personnel report that we did for Amanda DePape. She would leave the Chesterfield Police Department and we would hire her directly per our conversation that we had in previous meetings. So that is on there, just so you know. We discussions on when that transition would happen once or should that position be approved tonight. But the plan would be basically for her to complete this school year in her current position and then make the transition over the summer. Because we're not sure if we would be, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be able to have a school resource officer to close out the year if we did it that way. So that's the thought right now. So I just wanted to make that point that out before we moved on.
Okay. Next item is our consent agenda, which tonight consists of the approval of minutes for March 22nd regular meeting and the March 18th workshop, as well as the personnel report, the financial report, and the bills payable for March of this year. So is there a? Okay, we'll come back. Okay. Is there a motion to accept and approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make the motion. All right. I'll make the motion.
I will second.
All right, any discussion? Go ahead and,
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes, Ms. Brookmeyer,
yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Wasn't on our agenda, but we will add our student congress update if there's no objections. I know. This is me. Okay.
Thank you for that. Today, obviously, we had our student congress meeting with all of the elementary schools, middle schools, and high school. And Mr. McDonald came to join us today to talk to us and discuss everything that's going on with the bond and everything else that any of the students need. And I will get into what all the schools have been doing. So at the high school, the military ball for JROTC is May 19th at Zacaro's. We just finished our musical of Anne of Green Gables. prom is coming up on May 13th, and graduation is on June 3rd. At Middle School South, they had an Easter egg hunt with the Early Childhood Center. They had a masquerade dance last Friday. The Cedar Point field trip is coming up on May 23rd. And Washington DC field trip for the 8th graders is this weekend. Middle School North is currently doing M-STEP. Their Washington DC field trip for the 8th graders leaves today. They're doing Relay for Life, and they're planning their Cedar Point field trip in June. For Ashley, they're also doing M-STEP, and the 3rd grade musical, A Kid's Life, is going to be on May 16th. McCants finished their after-school recreations. They're doing an M-STEP celebration, and they did a school-wide popcorn day on April 28th. At Lottie, they are doing many fun spirit days for the students to enjoy. A 3rd grade musical is May 24th. They're doing a 5th grade celebration as they leave to go to middle school, and their field day is going to be on June 1st. Lighthouse had live animals visit the school. They're doing field trips to the zoo, skating rink, and Port Huron museum. Celebrate March's Reading Month with activities and plenty of fun interactive books. And Great Oaks, the 5th grade celebration is going to be at Brandenburg Park. The students and staff wrote positive notes on butterfly stickers displayed on bulletin boards. They did pet food donations until the end of April for a local animal shelter. And finally, our Nuldrit representative was at Starbase today, so we don't have an update for them.
Thank you. Moving into new business, we have a field trip request, Middle School North and South as annual 8th grade trip to Washington DC, where students will see and visit the elements and attractions of history and government firsthand. North would be traveling April 24th of 2024 to April 28th, and Middle School South will be traveling May 2nd to May 4th. So the recommendation is that the board approve the DC field trips for both Middle School North and South as presented. Is there a motion for the field trips?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I just had a question, I guess myself. I noticed like there's a different amount of dates. Is that just by preference of the sponsors for those? Like the North field trip is like
Yeah,
5.
I believe there's a limit to the number that can go at one time, so that.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
We don't have any students.
Thank you. Do we know how many students from Middle School South and Middle School North attend roughly?
It's about 50, I believe, from each building.
Yeah. Okay. Do we ever reach out to parents to find out why there's such a low turnout in the trip and just for conversation's sake?
No, I have not, but we can do that.
Yeah, I'm just interested. My youngest is going this year and I think your number is pretty accurate. And I was just kind of surprised with the size of the schools. You know, how many kids actually do attend the trip. So I think it's just something I think we should look into. Is this the proper place to be sending them for for an 8th grade trip? Due to the low turnout, is it better with a low turnout due to where they're going? Just something that I was thinking of, when I saw the number of students attending. So.
Yeah, because I know they begin, because I believe it's in like 2 weeks, they start having the meetings for next year.
Mhm.
So they publicize it all year
Right.
long.
Start saving. All right, thank you.
I guess I have a couple of comments, Dennis, on your comments. One, this year they flew, where last year we had some transportation issues with the buses. So the students are flying this year, and correct me if I'm wrong, I honestly think that we're flying for the same price that we were, on the buses. But I can tell you personal experience that when the flyer came home, I laughed and said I can take my whole family out for a trip for 3-4 days for what they're charging. Neither of my kids went, but we went to DC as a family, so it's not cheap. Obviously, if your kid's there this weekend, this week, but
Mr. Moses, this is to approve the field trip for North and South to Washington DC next year. Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes. Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli.
Yes.
Right, motion passes. Next, we have the MISD budget resolution. So at the April 2023 annual meeting of the Macomb County School Boards, the MISD budget was unanimously approved. Under new ISD legislation, the general fund operating budget must be approved by each individual board. And the deadline for that resolution is June 1st. So the recommendation is that the board approve the MISD budget as presented. I left. Well, Mr. Green attended that, correct?
Well, attending is all relative. I arrived for a scheduled meeting. It started 15 minutes late. And after being there for an hour and 15 minutes into the meeting, we still hadn't got to the operating budget. I had had presentations on technology, special education, all which were helpful, quite honestly, but not what I was there for. So in the spirit of true honesty, I left after that because I had no idea how much longer it was going to be before we actually got to the purpose of the meeting. So next year, Mr. DeRue will be happy to attend. So I apologize. Again, my patience on that stuff wears out. I wish I could give you more information, shed more light onto what's in front of you. Except that I'm sure Mr. Jankowski has perused it and probably gave us a recommendation to accept it. Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the MISD budget resolution?
I'm not making that. Absolutely not. Somebody has to make a motion. We
Or
have
is there
to,
a motion to not approve? the
I guess we could
ISD
not
budget
approve it. I
resolution?
don't know how many districts do that, but
I will make a motion to approve.
don't allow my frustration to cloud your judgment.
So Ms. Knox has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any other further discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Ms. Knox, yes. Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
No.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yeah.
Ms. Berkmeyer.
Yes. All right. We'll just leave it at that. We'll move on to the Comerica resolution. So as the board has discussed, the Comerica Governmental Pooled Investment Fund is a short-term money market fund designed for local governments. The fund's objective is to offer a short-term investment vehicle for public entities that provide as high a current yield as is consistent with maintaining liquidity and stability of principal, and that complies with statutory requirements. So the recommendation is that the board approve the Comerica resolution presented before you.
I'll make the motion, but I think it might be a good idea for somebody to explain it maybe a little bit better. Not better,
Sure.
but maybe in different terms of why we need to do it and it's protecting our investment.
You, me?
Do you want me to do it now, or do you want to wait till you have the
Go ahead.
motions? Okay, basically, this is pursuant to what we've discussed before, with all the banks and the issues that they're having. Right now, your FDIC insurance is up to 250,000. And so what we want to do is just take proactive measures to make sure that all of our funds are basically insured. So what this is, it sets up what's called a sweep account. Anything over 250,000 will then be swept from the account, and it'll put into short-term treasuries, which are, as safe as you can get. It'll still allow us to have liquidity if we need, obviously, to pay people and so on. But it'll also put us to make sure all of our funds are insured that we have, so that we're we're not in jeopardy of what happened with, what was it, Silicon Valley Bank, where all of a sudden they had a bank run, and then for that weekend, nobody knew whether the government was going to backstop that. So just gives us the ability to secure all of that. We were considering changing banks, but the way that it keeps changing and more people are added to the list, we don't know if we could pick the bank that would not be on the list. And we also don't want to start a run on a bank. So this gives us all the insurance and to boot, we'll get a little bit more than your standard savings account in interest. So.
And I believe it was at the last meeting or the meeting before that, Mr. Rathbun talked about this a little bit more like in depth. Yeah. Okay.
And it definitely came to finance. We talked about it. And the list that he's talking about, that Phil's talking about is, there's a watch list that's out there of banks that have high potential to have what happened in California happen here. This particular bank we're talking about is on that list. So diversifying, I guess, would be the best term. Trying to make sure all of our eggs aren't in one basket. That's all this is doing, but he needs approval to do that.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion?
Yeah, I already made the motion. I
yes,
just wanted
sorry.
an explanation
I
for,
think he needs a second. I'll second.
yeah.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes. Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mrs. Bergmeyer.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Our next item is the bond contract for French and Associates. So before the board is a contract to engage with French and Associates for the architectural services on behalf of Anchor Bay Schools related to the construction with the 2023 bond projects that we approved in our bond application to the Michigan Department of Treasury. French and Associates has a long history with Anchor Bay and is intimately familiar with our buildings already. So we're excited to move forward with the bond projects and feel pretty confident that French would be a great partner. So the recommendation is that French and Associates contract be approved as presented. Is there a motion for this approval?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is a 1-year contract, right?
No, this would be for the duration of the bond.
What happens if French is no longer around?
Then we move to find a new designer.
And they're paid as projects progress? When they're
Yes.
completed, is there a deposit? How
Yeah,
does that
so
work?
basically there's a monthly fee based off of work for all the meetings and the planning and all that goes along. So you'll see that. And then as major portions of the project, then they will get a percentage at 6.75.
Well, that's a healthy percentage.
So with
Go ahead,
that,
John.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
so they get paid an additional amount in addition to the 6.7%?
No,
Or
they're,
is that monthly fee part of the 6.7?
that's part of it. And then there's milestones that they'll get that. Now, there are, like, if we ask for additional sets of drawings and things like that, there is a per item fee for that. That if it's over above the standard, but we're moving everything to electronic anyhow. But yeah, that's basically how it works, is they're incurring costs as it goes along, so we cover those, and then as the major pieces fall in, then they'll get that along the way.
So that, yeah, that was when we talked in the building meeting was they get 6.7 and I think Bart Mallow gets 7%, right? And is the fees off of that total bond, which is, it's a pretty substantial amount of money, which I get they're doing a lot of work, but. And there was we didn't like go out to, we didn't look for other ones. We just went with them because of the long history with them, which I get, but. Is that an industry standard? I mean, is that pretty much
Yes,
the going rate everywhere? Does anybody have something like if like Troy or I think it's Troy that did a $600 million bond? Does it go by the level of that
no,
or they would be getting 6.7?
they would be getting, the same percentage. In fact, they're going with the same. group.
With the same crew?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
I guess the extras I'd like to,
the extras are.
the
if
extras,
we-
I'd love to know what they're getting extra when.
Well, it's only if we request, so we haven't, we basically said. That was part of the kind of bargaining processes, what do we get as part of that? And then if there's anything above it, then like with everything, we do a per unit kind of like price if we go above a set amount or something like that.
So the 6.75 is for the duration of our agreement
Yes.
Yeah, so they're getting 6.7 of the entire.
for the next 30 years, 20 years.
It's not necessarily the entire thing. That's like buses, that portion of it, they
Right.
obviously don't get.
Whatever they get, yeah.
Yeah, so whatever is the actual construction part.
But then they're still locked in at 6, 7 if it's 5 years down the road.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
could be detrimental
No,
to them, you
Yeah,
know,
obviously, yeah.
And that's standard for the whole.
right?
You probably could use a bus consultant at 6.75. That'd be my recommendation.
I'll keep that in mind.
All right, we're gonna go with the roll to approve the motion is to approve the bond contract for French Associates. Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green? No, that was Mr. Richards, right? Okay, that's what I wrote, but I changed it. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatelli,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
All right, motion passes. Next is an award recommendation for bid package N 426, which is a core network upgrade for Lighthouse, Ashley, Transportation, Early Childhood Center, and Aquatic Center. The school district requested bids to replace our network core for the district and replace the network for the Ashley, Transportation, Early Childhood, and Aquatic Center. The new core network equipment will replace the network equipment that was installed in 2014. The current equipment will be end of life and end of support year next year. We're accepting the bids now so we can have the equipment replaced by the end of summer 24. Mr. Sizemore, our technology supervisor, has reviewed the bids, and attached was the bid tabulation sheet to upgrade the district's core at Lighthouse, Ashley, Transportation, Early Childhood, and Aquatic Center with the additional 5-year warranty. So the recommendation was to award the bid to People Driven for $136,409. And the recommendation is the board award this bid as presented. So is there a motion for this award?
I'll make the motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Discussion?
Mr. Jankowski, is this bond money or is this general fund money?
This is not from the newest bond. It's from.
The
basically
17
general fund,
17
ESSER,
tax-
and so on.
Tech bond?
Yeah, it's from a few sources, ESSER funds.
Okay.
And all that, yeah.
So not from our most recent
Nope.
bond, though.
No,
Can you tell us what a network core is?
I will let Mr. Sidemore. That's basically the servers and everything that goes with it.
So our core is for what it's pretty much our routers, and if you have it go through the actual name, but the core is a district, so it's core of the center. So everything that connects to all the other buildings connects into Lighthouse. That equipment there, as I said, will be end of life in the following year or two, so we won't be able to get it supported or repaired. So we have to get that stuff replaced. That is, the central core of the district. So if that goes down, no internet, no phones, everything goes through Lighthouse. That help you? And like I said, I can get into some details, but I figured it's not something you really.
Your detail would probably be overheads, but thank you.
Good,
Yeah, I didn't realize everything went through Lighthouse.
right?
First, it was our high school at one point, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
All right, so call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox? Yes. It's so embarrassing.
Oh.
Mr. Vinatelli,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer.
Yes. All right. Motion passes. All right, so the next award recommendation is for the bid package number WKELP C23, the elementary lab PC refresh. The district requested bids to purchase 230 computer workstations to replace all the elementary lab computers with the option of a 5-year warranty. This will replace our current PCs that were installed in 2015. Mr. Sizemore again reviewed the bids, attached the bid tabulation sheet for your review. The recommendation is to award the computer workstation purchase again to People Driven in the amount of $212,520. The breakdown of that money is that $211,600 was for the 230 workstations, and then an extra $920 for the 5-year warranty for the $212,520,000. So the recommendation is that the board approve the workstation purchase with the warranty to People Driven as presented.
Do we need a motion before we discuss it? Okay, I'll make the motion to approve it, but I got some questions.
I'll support so you can have your questions answered.
These are personal computer, desktop computers, I'm assuming.
Yes, these are.
Is
like
this,
labs.
is this gonna be,
Wait, these are laptops though, right?
no, these are PCs, are
They're desktops?
They're
So,
desktops.
yes, some of these are
That's what-
desktops, yeah.
Okay.
It just makes me wonder, is that where we're going? It's just. And
No, we will have additional, and that's part of the bond will be additional like mobile devices, but we still need like. Teachers have desktop computers that they need, because we still need that just in case and like the physical workstations in the offices and things like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah, because you're thinking 230 workstations among 6 elementary schools.
yeah,
You know.
And they're less than $1,000 each, right?
Yeah.
For the equipment.
I will let Mr. Sizemore talk about that. Tim, would you, I want to know brand of computers.
Should be in there, but the ones that we approved were Dells. They're in there, so I don't know if in the details in the bond or in their bid package, they're usually, we get our either HP or Dells. Those are our standards, without going to some strange, PC out there that we've never heard of. Every once in a while, we get some real strange bids or really cheap bids, and we have no idea who they are or where they come from. But the current ones are Dells that we would have. Right, and like I said, some of the Dell workstations, at least for the elementaries, we need the actual PCs for, their Lego stuff, and some of the other ones require you to have an actual PC and doesn't run off a Chromebook, or some of the other applications that they need has to have an actual workstation PC and not a Chromebook.
I see here on the bid sheet that we had a lower bid. Was there a reason you didn't go with that company?
I've never ever heard of them in my, entire career yet.
Okay, that's fair.
So yeah, then the one that bid, they were out from California somewhere.
Dominic, you had a.
Yeah, I did.
Comment.
The old computers of 2015, what are we doing with those? Are we just throwing them away?
Pretty much well, you can talk about
Well,
that.
some of them, like I said, yeah, we try to keep some of them for spares here and there, but most of them we get recycled. I mean, at this point, they're kind of, outdated. They're not useful. They're not gonna run the newer version of Windows. So no, I mean, like I said, we do try to keep some around. We double the memory in them. That's in there, but they're pretty much, useless. Like I said, if you get, they're 7, 8 years old, they're not, they're just not useless.
What's the average lifespan for one of these computers? Like so the ones that we bought in 2015, 7, 8 years later, they're obsolete. What about the ones we're buying now? How long will they last?
About the same. I mean, between anywhere, the replacement that we put in there is usually about we try to do it every 7 years.
Okay. Is there any brand out there that, let's say, costs more but lasts longer?
No. No, and usually by that point too, I mean, you look at the operating systems from, Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 10, now we're at Windows 11. When we first bought those, they were running Windows XP, like I said, so, by the time you start hopping operating systems, by then they're gonna be obsolete. I mean, they just are. Okay. I mean, how long do you keep your cell phone? I mean, most people don't keep a cell phone for 7, 8 years. I mean, that's where we're at with them. I mean,
Sure, thanks.
right?
So the duration isn't so much the workstation itself as the technology around it. Just, it can't support it at the
Correct,
rate
right.
that it moves.
Yeah, yep, they outgrow it, where we need extra processing power, everything else is coming through, so yeah, I mean, we have to change them. I mean, they're
Okay.
just not, and you can see, we were doing some stuff today with some CAD stuff and some of the older ones and newer ones, and what a big difference from, even from 4 years ago to today. It makes a huge difference of how much faster they are.
Okay. Any other-
So my motion was to approve it. Like I said, I just wanted to hear the explanation and wanted a description of what what we were actually getting.
Sure.
And I believe it was seconded, so.
Motion to approve the elementary lab PC refresh. Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Bergmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Vendatelli,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, yes.
All right, motion passes. Last item of new business is a policy first reading. So the board has the following policy updates to review for a first reading. These were presented and went over in more depth in policy committee. So first, including the top scholar policy. So beginning with the graduating class of 2027, class ranking will be determined by using the same formula that the MISD uses to determine the Macomb County all academic honorees. This formula uses a weighted score that balances both GPA and SAT scores. The next policy is the eligibility policy. Beginning in 25-26 school year, the eligibility policy will be expanded to include all extracurricular activities, not just sports. Students will have to maintain a 2.0 grade point average, pass all classes, and have good citizenship to participate in any extracurricular event that does not go towards a grade. And then following the next policy is the events policy. This is that alcohol would be banned at any event where students are present. We also will not advertise or support events by outside groups that serve alcohol where our students would be present. And the recommendation is that the Board of Education approve these policies. This is just a first reading, so we don't need to vote on this tonight, but these went out to the full board now, and it's, we can open for discussion.
On the events, you're saying any event that a kid might be at? Or has a student has a potential to be at?
Where students are invited. So, for example, like I know that we have some events like, booster clubs run like raffle type events, that have been at banquet halls that serve alcohol. Typically, like in the past, those events were not open to students. They were open to like parents or community only. So that is allowed. What would not be allowed is, events where maybe a PTO puts on an event and they're providing or serving alcohol to the parents, but it's an event for the families and the children are in attendance as well.
We did talk about this at length as well. Certainly, the reasoning for not putting some of these into place for, a year or 2, 3, and then the top scholar policy is actually our freshman classes will be just coming in. Is we want to give parents a heads up because it's not a huge change. In how it's being scored and how we're choosing like the top scholar, for example. But we want to make sure that when those freshmen are setting foot on campus, they understand that there's been a slight change to how that how the number one ranking is attained. And it's again, just in compliance and in line with what MISD is using. Anchor Bay kind of already had their own little formula that we did. And honestly, when we looked at the three different options and the formulas, the top 5 students were the top 5 students. Matter of fact, the top one, the first student was the first student in all the rankings.
Yes.
And then, 2 and 3 kind of switch back and forth. And that's why the discussion was had, that this should be. You can't just drop it on our students now and our parents now, because we've kind of changed how the formula works.
Oh, yeah, I was asking about that, but on that one, what prompted that change, I guess? And was it just something
Well, basically.
somebody wanted to talk about and didn't come up at I would have thought these 3 policy changes would have been something we would have talked about at the retreat we just had too, but would have been a perfect time for it.
We had actually talked about it at last year
retreat. Yeah.
for,
I didn't make last year's retreat.
Okay,
I
and
apologize.
then-
I was working.
and basically it's because we have, the county puts out their list and they invite people, and then, so there's a discrepancy now between, we have our list and it doesn't match up, so some people are. Why am I not on that list? Well, that's a different formula, so because they're on different things, so we'll align with that, so it's same thing with. When the Free Press and the county do theirs, so now they'll be exactly the same, so then people will know if I'm. On the list for Anchor Bay, I will be on that list as well.
Okay. Just
Um,
wondered.
This question on the 2.0 GPA, is that raised from what it used to be, or
What's that?
to attend any athletic or,
He said is the
Two-
2.0
no,
GPA
that-
raised
the
from
same-
what it
That's
was.
MHSA, yeah,
yeah.
On the athletic side,
yeah.
on
right,
the
yeah, it's on
extracurricular
athletics, but
side
now
is
it'll-
where
extend to-
what we're really changing.
Right, but they
Yeah.
should be held to the same standard, right?
Yeah.
That was
because
our,
what you're-
that was our thought process too.
Yeah.
There any other policies the policy committee is looking at?
No.
These
We
were the
just
3
met
that
last week.
we reviewed last week.
Okay.
2 weeks ago. It all runs together.
Now, back to when you say the events, because I'm just thinking back to the swim banquet, they had alcohol at, and there was kids there. I don't
Correct.
know if all banquets have it, because haven't been to other ones.
We were getting conflicting answers. Some, it sounded like maybe some did, some did not.
I can't
Um,
remember if the soccer banquet had it.
But yeah, so that would be an
Yeah.
example of where that would no longer be
So that
allowed.
wouldn't be allowed to promote it.
Wouldn't be allowed to have it served at the banquet.
Oh, you're saying, okay, so maybe you're saying alcohol won't be served.
Right,
Well,
right.
School event. Oh, perfect.
Yeah, football never had.
The only
their
school
banquets.
events where alcohol would have, not even school, but the only district associated events where alcohol could have the potential to be served is where there's no potential for students
Okay.
to be present.
Got
And with, there are some fundraisers that some booster clubs do that
Yeah, correct.
do that. So
I guess there is,
Thank you.
there is one more piece I should throw out there. It's not in here in the events policy with the alcohol. We need to make sure that all of our organizers know, a lot of times, and I hate to do this, but our ROTC might show up for a presentation of the flag. That means there's now students in that event, even though they're leaving immediately after.
Yeah.
So that needs to be discussed so they
Okay.
don't accidentally step
Yeah, we can,
over the policy.
that can be in the administrative guidelines that go with it.
Where it could like start
No,
after they
you
leave.
know, like same thing, we have, at the end of the reverse raffle, you might have kids that show up and they're, helping load that's going to happen, but as long as they're not invited and they're not like part of it and all of that.
Well, I know, so for some of the golf outings, for athletics, they'll have the athletes there in the morning to unload clubs
Yeah.
and everything, but then they have to leave after that. Which it's like 7 AM, so.
Yeah, the main goal is to have just some brighter lines between, if kids are there, then once they start, if they're serving, then do it at that point, once they're gone, just not to run the risk of.
So I don't disagree with the policy at all, but I just wonder how are you gonna be able to police that, and what's the reprimand or what's the repercussions if a club's found out doing it against policy?
Well, again, we'll have to handle it by each situation, but if it's a third party group, if it's a boosted group or something like that, we just will not advertise it. I mean, we don't have control to that extent. So we won't put it in our Friday flyers. We won't,
Correct, because many, like, for example, many of our PTOs,
yeah.
would fall under that. Like if the PTO of one of our schools chose to run an event that had alcohol, with where students might be in attendance, we just would not participate in like passing out those flyers or advertising that, because
We
they
would
are
have
their own entities.
Some of them, John, are independent, or 501c3s.
That is
I
a
get
whole-
that,
That's
but-
a whole different discussion.
Yeah, it's a whole, but didn't we have the same thing when it came to the money with one of them early on and we got involved because it's still sponsored by Anchor Bay? I get their 501c3s, but they're still part of our organization.
Right.
So I would think if we make a rule here of that, that would be something that we would put off to the. put
I
to
think
the-
because they are created in their own light, but they're kind of in coordination with the school district. Like we essentially accept the schools or, the principals or the schools accept their donations, accept their, contributions to the school. If they fundraise for them, if they purchase things for them. So to that light, they just wouldn't participate in advertising that event or promoting it if that was what they had
But we
chose to
still
do.
accept their money.
Yeah. This
Well,
seems like mixed messaging.
Yeah,
to me.
I know.
no.
You're right, Mike. It's
Part
a
of
fine
it-
line. It's a fine
there's
line.
a line.
Part of it
right,
is, it's a
But it's the same with
liability.
athletics,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Like
gray.
you're.
It's a great
you're
fine line.
Yeah.
raising money, selling alcohol at a different event, but then, we're still buying uniforms with that money. So it's the same.
Well, I think you're okay with that, because there's no students there. That's what you're saying. And
Right.
obviously we know as adults, they're gonna
Yeah.
have some drinks and you're gonna make some money and it's all for a good benefit. But if the end goal here is to not have students at events where where people are serving alcohol, then I would think that would extend to your PTOs as well.
Well, and that could be a future discussion of policy or, direction to either the buildings or, that if that's the road that the PTOs are going down, we will cease our involvement.
the
That's really our option.
And the PTGs or Os are going that direction. They're doing the painting with a twist. It's off campus, still a fundraiser. Drinking wine and painting or going to a wine house downtown New Baltimore. So John's right, it is it's a fine gray line that we're trying to.
And you're doing some
Right
mixed
now.
messaging to them, I
Yeah,
think.
I don't like gray lines.
No, me neither. I think it's more of a, you have a rule.
And then it gets.
And I
back
don't
to
think that they would have
whole-
a bad, I don't think that the PTOs would really,
Oh, I don't know. You saw what happened the last time
all right, maybe not. I could be
we got drug into that mess that we didn't want to
Yeah.
be in and suddenly.
No, I know, but we were, and that's why I say we were when it came to the money, and they meet in our buildings, they do stuff in our buildings, they do stuff with our students. It just seems like that would be. I don't know,
Maybe-
Yeah,
maybe
they're-
I'm way off base, but
There,
No, I
well, no, I mean, there's a whole discussion that could be had on that, but,
Yeah.
I think this is a good first step in drawing a bright line into what we will support and advertise, because there is a liability. If we advertise it and we condone it explicitly and something was to happen, then we share some responsibility for that. So,
Would it behoove us to either have some representatives from the board or the policy committee sit down with some of the PTG, PTO, like presidents or vice presidents or something, just to have an open dialogue about it? And
well, it might be worthwhile having another discussion with the policy committee just to look at those ramifications of what you have and all that, because you saw basically over the last few years, districts are either taking one of two approaches. You either bring everything in-house. So they're not separate 501c3 organizations, or everything's out when it comes to those booster organizations. And much of that comes down to what's the liability and the supervision that you want to provide for those areas. So that's a much larger conversation to have. We're as kind of in the middle on both that. We have some that are in-house, some that are not. So,
I think that's something we might wanna
you will
have a discussion and
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
not today,
absolutely.
but soon
Yeah.
to clean
Yes.
up. I mean, you're doing a great job and I think it's great. I
Yeah.
was just questioning.
No, it's
Sorry if
just-
I missed it, but I,
No, it's just, it's as with anything, as we start,
yep,
you start going through and you revise. then
you
you're like,
uncover
okay.
rocks.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, okay, well, let's kind of see where we want to go with this. Yeah.
Great.
I had a question for you real quick too. Eligibility policy, I think I remember reading something on the email that was sent out that there's some exception where the principal can work out a plan with the student using a certain set of guidelines that they can still be allowed to attend as long as they're, I guess, fixing whatever issues they
Yeah.
have.
Yes, so basically they would have the opportunity. There's a couple outs, I guess, for lack of a better term. If students maintain over a 3.0 GPA, then they would have a one-time exception because things happen sometimes. And it's only by term. So death in the family or something like that. But overall, the GPA is good. Fine, we'll do that. Now, the MHSA does not necessarily allow that. But for at least our purposes, we would show some grace in those areas. Same thing if, it's an interim and they're behind, then we will give them, we'll monitor them more closely in order to get them to where they need to be. So they will have, all of these are built to just kind of put support structures in and warnings and kind of, because we don't want to wait until kids are failing or falling below a certain threshold. We want to make sure that we're providing those supports, and this puts it just sets some triggers that we will have there in order to make sure those things happen and to provide some motivation.
This is all clubs or just school sponsored clubs?
This
or-
would be, well, again, we're only limited to whatever would be school sponsored, so it falls under, because again, we've been
Well,
looking through
go ahead.
all of that. If it's for a grade, then we obviously cannot. So if it's something like marching band, which is outside, but that's a grade, that doesn't fall under this, but
But if it's a club with a non-paid coach,
if
They're
and
not
again,
even-
we don't have an issue
or an-
necessarily with the clubs. It's because like
Yeah.
sports, you can still practice and that's part of the policy. You can
Right.
practice with the team. In fact, we want you to stay there. We want the club to and the coach or the sponsor to have that conversation. Hey, sorry, you couldn't do whatever competition this week. But let's get you where you need to be. So next time you will be there.
And
I just still, it's a problem that I don't know how you police that, I guess is my problem. You got so many clubs, you got so many people. You've got clubs that to this point, we might not even be oversighting. And you've got coaches that don't work in the
Well,
building. So
and-
how do you get to that coach to say, hey, this kid's not passing when he's never inside the building?
And part
You
of
know.
that is because so it's a 2-year delay is because right now that's what we're doing with the clubs and organizations. Getting that, building those structures, having that in place. There's a pretty good structure in order to notify people, obviously, every time that there's a progress report or report card goes out or something along those lines, we can do that. And so we'll build those things, and I've had great success with it in every district. It's just hugely. There's two philosophies of eligibility policies. One is I do an eligibility policy and it's going to weed kids out, but I've always seen it the other way. Well, I would love if kids are coming to school for math and English and science and social studies. They're not. What motivates them is those other things. We want them to be part of that, and that's how the policy is structured. And that will motivate them to do better in class. Now, will kids get 4.0s all of a sudden? No, they're going to, if they need a 2 point, they'll get a 2.1, some kids. It's just, but at least they're better than, and it means they're passing, and it means they're going to have a diploma, and it'll increase their graduation rate, and it'll give them more opportunities as they go forward.
Again, I don't disagree with the policy at all.
Yeah.
I just look at the enforcement of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's vast. And are we talking about all clubs like that aren't sports
Well,
affiliated?
and
or
again,
aren't
it's not
MSHA?
necessarily. You can still be part of the sports team, just like with, you just can't be in the competition. You can't do if there's extra, like, things that are going, hey, we're in this club and we're going to see, let's say a play downtown or something like that. Well, that's the thing. You wouldn't be able to, we're not going to, we want you to, and sometimes those, you know, if you can't do it this time, then we want you to get you on track. So next time you can, and you can have those privileges of that. And I'll tell you from my experience of having worked with similar policies over, what is it, 28 years now. The first year you will have people who are like, I don't understand, why are we doing this? And then after that, everybody, it will just be, I know, I need to get on. And you're going to see, you will still see a handful of people every year that will fall into that. But the vast majority of people are going to respond to it because they want to do those things. We want them to do that. We want to have the structures.
I agree
for that.
1000%. My,
Yeah.
let's say, just for instance, a bowling team, right? Coach is not inside the district, not a teacher.
Yeah.
Who's gonna contact him to tell him his bowler didn't make grades? Cause I guarantee he's not gonna call and look.
No, the athletic office will do that.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah, we can, like with our
And,
student information system, we can have kids.
and it's gonna pop up
Basically
and say
buy a
this guy's on
program.
the bowling team.
Well, yeah, we'll enter the kids in basically in their programs, and then you can just run a report and say, here we go. We know it's report card time. We'll run those. You can just say, this is where the kids are at. So that they know. I mean, coaches, I'll tell you, coaches they like this because they want to know where people are. Because right now, there is no structures. You get to the end, oh, you didn't do well on your exam, you have no, and also the kid doesn't do well. Now they could be out and ineligible for the rest of the term. This at least places some things in.
I think, I'm guessing, like right now, is this what I'm understanding? Like right now, you couldn't pull a list. Like today, pull a list of every club and everybody, every kid that's in every club currently. But that's what you want to get to.
Yeah, that's,
So right now, you don't know how big of a problem it is today.
well, we know just basically off of our.
Off
entire
of just
student
athletics.
population.
Oh,
Well,
off of
no, just,
certain
the-
percentages that
Yeah.
are standard that are common among schools.
yeah,
So, but you're putting in place something that each quarter you can pull everybody and you'll know exactly who it is. And I know like when I was in school, it was every quarter it came out, we had
Yeah.
to bring our eligibility slip. Maybe it's out of the
Yeah.
paper days, but we had to bring it to our coach.
Mhm.
And you either knew you were
Yeah.
just practicing for the rest of the
Ex-
time, or you were actually gonna
exactly.
be able to play games.
But
This
every,
is a
every
modern
teacher
version.
signed off on it.
But
before
every
you get
teacher had
the
to, you had
coach.
to
Yeah.
actually, now that you say that,
Yeah.
we had to take it to each of our teachers to have them sign off
Yeah.
on each one of them before we brought it
Yeah.
to our coach. So, but you would be instituting something like that where it's on the student each?
well, that
quarter?
would be part of it. If you fall below a certain threshold, then what are you going to do? What's your plan to kind of
Okay.
do that? And
Yeah.
it really depends on the student. I mean.
It's a big overhaul, but it's great.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, would that include like the angler club,
Yeah, I mean,
the
it. we
archery
also-
club, the
Yes, and it.
trap
includes-
shooting club? I
Yeah.
mean, how are we gonna get those people to register those kids in that club when it's never been done before?
Well, that's what
Is that-
exactly what we're doing now, is
Okay.
to get that, because we need to know who is. One, running our clubs and organizations, and then who's like involved in those, and so that will be part of all of that.
And it wasn't specifically called out as an extracurricular activity, but it does include dances, homecoming, prom, any sort of winter.
Those would be,
Mhm.
Yeah.
they,
They're extracurricular, yeah.
That's why there's a rollout period.
Yeah, yeah.
what's that?
That's why there's a rollout period.
You
So
evolved
Hey,
for 2
it's
years.
great, but yeah.
Yeah,
All right, like I said, that was a first reading, so we don't have to take any action on that tonight. Okay, other business, we will move around with board comments and points of pride. Mr. Richards, lead us off.
Thank you. The Student Summer Job Fair is May 2nd, 4 to 6 p.m. at the high school. The Anchor Bay support staff is having their bowling scholarship fundraiser this Friday at 6:30 at Total Sports in Harrison Township. The ABEA, A Night at the Races is Friday, May 5th. There are still tickets available. Congratulations to the Anchor Bay High School Jazz Ensemble and the white and red Anchor Bay High School Jazz Combo on earning a first division superior rating at State Jazz Festival. Awesome job. Congratulations to our 2021, 2022 reward schools, Lottie, Great Oaks, McCants, Lighthouse. This places these buildings among the top performing schools in the state. These 4 schools are also among 47 schools that were selected in Macomb and St. Clair counties. Congratulations to Middle School North Captain of the Month, Roxanne Binge. Thank you for everything that you do. Congratulations to Middle School North Students of the Month, Max Steer, 6th grade, Zachary LaCrue, 7th grade, Paisley Brady, 8th grade. Great job. Kindergarten transition night starts tonight at Great Oaks, May 8th at Naldrit, May 9th at McCants, May 11th at Ashley, May 16th at Lottie, and May 17th at Lighthouse. The Anchor Bay Summer Basketball Camp is June 26th to the 29th for boys and girls ages 7 to 14 at the high school gym. If you have any questions, reach out to Coach Selesky. I'd like to thank the National Junior Honor Society members and student council members from Middle School South that held the Easter egg hunt with preschoolers at Early Childhood Center. Great job. 2023 summer SAC and preschool registration is now open. This program runs from June 14th to the 18th, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Congratulations to Coach Morissette on your retirement. You will be very missed. I'd like to thank the Anchor Bay High School Relay for Life team that hosted a Cancer Awareness Spirit Week along with Pizza for a Purpose money drive. The school raised over $1,900 for the American Cancer Society. Great job. Congratulations to Middle School North 7th grade girl volleyball team. They finished their season with 12 wins and no losses. Awesome job. New student and school of choice students for 2023 and 2024 school year is now open. Come join the best district in Michigan, in my opinion. Congratulations to 11th grader Brianna Bielette. She will be attending the Washington Journalism and Media Conference at George Mason University this summer as a national youth correspondent. She was offered the opportunity to represent our school and the state of Michigan in this conference. Incredible job. I was able to attend the Shoreliner Spring Brunch today. The students did an incredible job and it was a great turnout. Once again, the ranch dressing is to die for. I think we should start selling it. I'm just throwing that out there. Congratulations to our all-county academic winner, Jacob Tyzak. Awesome. Takashik, thank you. Awesome job. My points of pride this month would be the Anchor Bay High School drama students from the spring musical Anne of Green Gables. Absolutely an incredible musical and talent, and the talent that we have here is amazing. I'd like to thank all the students and staff that helped make this a successful program. Thank you.
My comments just once again, Coach Jimmy for all of his service to Anchor Bay. He still lives here. He's still around. So once again, congratulations on finally retiring. Today is Administrative Professionals Day. So I wanted to thank our board administrative assistant, Sherry. She makes life easy for us, always goes above and beyond, always has candy on her desk. So thank you, Sherry, so much. Point of pride, kind of little off school, but not. I heard a lot about our senior spring breaks this year from Clearwater to Punta Cana and everything in between. And it sounded like everyone had a wonderful time. And from the parents, I heard that the students were very responsible. And so it's nice to see our community representing, themselves as young people in other places, respectfully and responsibly. So good job, seniors, for presenting yourselves well and becoming good young men and women. That's it.
My point of pride would obviously be Jim Morissette. I've worked with Jim in the community for probably his entire 20 years, pretty close. And he is involved in everything. He got his wrestlers involved in everything. And I've actually sat up here and said that I wish more of our coaches held their players accountable like Jim does, because he's out there. He's standing on that beach when those people are getting in the lake for the plunge. keeping some of the spectators back and stuff like that. So congratulations, Jim. 32 years is a long time. And I'm really hoping that the board president at some point will rename the wrestling room that's being added on to the Jim Morissette Wrestling Room or Morissette Wrestling Room, which would be a cool thing for us to do at some point. I spent my day in Lansing today. Not really my kind of town. It's too close to that green and white, but attended a couple of different meetings. I'm up there generally all day on Wednesdays before our board meeting. It happens to be a couple of meetings that fall up there. I am elated to hear that it looks like we've hired our safety liaison, our director there. And with her supervisor's permission, I'm going to start dragging her into some of the things that I'm involved with in the school safety, Office of School Safety. One of the things that came out of my meeting today that we're going to begin lobbying for, and we're hoping to get some backup from some of our elected officials in Lansing, is during the pandemic, the governor signed kind of an emergency order that allowed us to bring back teachers that had retired. I think with 30 days, once they're out for 30 days, we could bring them back. And correct me if I'm wrong, but right now we're in a 9-month situation.
Yeah.
So we have a teacher shortage across the state. So that kind of came into one of my meetings. And the other meeting, we have the same challenge with our mental health professionals. All of our support staff are under the same 9-month. Once they step away, they're gone for 9 months. And what's happening is they step away for 9 months and we lose them. And we've got people in our district and other districts around the state where we are short 800 mental health professionals in our school districts. People want to come back, and if we could get them back 30 days after they leave versus 9 months, we may have a better retention rate of some of those retired folks. So my commission is drafting up a letter. It's going up to the governor and as well to all of our ISD boards. And we're going to ask them to pass a resolution requesting that the governor would put another, I don't want to call it emergency order because I don't know if that's the right term, but essentially roll us back to where we were during COVID, where those teachers could retire and come back. And same with those mental health professionals. So that's supposed to be drafted in the next couple of weeks. I may come back in front of our board and as a show of support for this, ask for what do we call it when it really has no teeth, but a resolution that this board would pass on directing Macomb ISD to to support this and make their folks vote on it. So it's that important. We're short that many teachers and that many mental health folks around the state. So in an effort to try to get to the point where we can start recovering those 800 people, we've got some great people that have retired. And part of coming back in the training program to go into school, being a counselor in the school, is having a mentor. And we're losing all of our senior folks who are retiring that would be more than happy to come back and mentor, even if it's for a year and a half, to get to work with new folks to get them back in. So we're hoping that we can recover some of those lost 800. And what's happening largely, quite honestly, is they're leaving one district and going to the other. And it's turned into an auction type thing where school districts will hire somebody today, and in 6 months, someone else hires them away, offers them more money, better hours, whatever it might be. So we're not actually gaining anywhere. Wayne State's got a good program, but my point is that we're struggling, and we're, as a commission, we're sitting down, we're trying to find ways to get those mental health professionals back in our schools. And I guess I'll leave you guys with one of the stats I saw today from a presentation was that a high school student every 15 minutes has an ideation of committing suicide or actually commit suicide in the state of Michigan. So that's not nationwide, that's just our districts here. And that's, to me, is scary. And we don't have the resources there to back those folks up.
Dan, okay. I just want to say thank you to Sherry too. You do an amazing job and we greatly appreciate you. And follow everybody's sentiments with Morissette and the Morissette family. They're wonderful people. They've been a legacy in this area for almost as long as I've been alive. So I'm glad he's retiring, but part of me wishes he could come back too, so. Pat, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't know why it's 9 months instead of 30 days. And I would gladly support that. So,
You know, oddly, John might be the best person to shed some light out of that because it's got to do with pensions and retirement and or, you know, even Phil, but that's the hangup is everybody's for it except the Office of Retirement, OCR, ORC, whoever the hell they are.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in legislative update.
There we go.
All right. Thanks Sherry for everything you do. I know the 5 years I've been on this board, you've been, you're second to none. So thanks for everything. You deserve more than one day a year. That's for sure. Mr. Morissette, Coach Morissette. I didn't know him all that well, but all that I know is he's been around forever since I was a kid in this area. So he's definitely big shoes to fill, whoever takes his spot. Naming something after him, I think would be a great tribute to him. And that's a great idea there, Pat. As far as I'll wait for the legislative update is I would say, I mean, just hearing that now and I'm 100% in support with you on that. And I work with a lot of the politicians, obviously, and going up to Lansing a lot. And I know right now, I mean, just for the shortage of teachers, they're offering $9,600 a year to any kid that's going to college, graduating this year. Are eligible for up to $9,600 a year if they're going into teaching, and all of our seniors that graduate this year. I'm sure we've put it out, the Michigan Achievement Scholarship that can be eligible for up to $5,500 a year for 5 years, as long as they start college, I believe in 18 months, they're allowed or 13 months. They can take 1 year off. But as far as that, so I think the legislators would be in tune with that. And that would be, to your point, Mike, would be, even if we're doing that right now, it's going to take those kids that are graduating not right now, at least 4 or 5 years to become teachers. So we need something more of a better fix than just an executive order or something that might cause more political heartache in that arena. So I'll wait for you. I mean, obviously I know pensions and how it can affect pensions, but any help I can be, I would love to assist you and
Thank you.
anybody. So thank you.
My own comments, Mr. Morissette, I did not know him, personally with children on the team or anything, but I will say that I have heard numerous great things about him as a coach and as a person, as a mentor to a lot of our students. So, 32 years as head coach, 37 years coaching. I was doing quick math and they had said he graduated from here in 81. So he very shortly after graduating started coaching. So it's just quite an achievement and I'm very appreciative for that. So my point of pride, besides Mr. Morissette, actually goes to Mr. Richards. I received an email from our varsity baseball coach, Mr. Beesbrook, thanking Mr. Richards and wanted me to know that he took time out of his own schedule because the varsity baseball tractor for grooming the fields was not working. And Mr. Richards came up and got it running for them and really went out of their way for them. And he wanted to make sure that we knew about that. So I appreciate that. I know Mr. Richards is never sitting still and is all over this district, attending events and talking to people. But he also fixes tractors. So in case you need that done.
It is now.
All right. We have legislative update.
Legislative update, for so long, there was nothing, and now all of a sudden there's 23 bills that kind of pertain to us in one way, shape, or form. Basically, there's a collective bargaining ones that we've talked about in the past of the prohibited subjects. You can see the first group, they're kind of in succession. The big one is 4354, and then 4350, House Bill 4355, 56, 57. Those just kind of build on that and just kind of rescinding those. We're expecting movement on those in in the next week or two, depends on how everything goes with the budget around that. And then you can see just there's House Bill 4222 and 23, that's for a sales tax holiday. That's another thing that will be impact to the budget. If you put that in, then obviously there's less funds to go around. Quite a few security things with high visibility markers, panic buttons and so on, which you can see in there. And then there's just, I'm not going to go through all of these, but at the end, you'll notice there are some that are now with the waiting periods there for coaches. So if you have retired coaches, that it would modify the waiting period for that. There has been a whole discussion on that because when they first put it in place, the fear is the pensions, because Michigan had basically is on a path to pay off those pensions. It would be, I believe now 14 years, and they'll be kind of square on that. And you can see, we'll talk about the budget and all that. So the state's been trying to pay that ahead. They used to have this where it could be 30 days, and what you saw, people would go back to the same exact positions. And then therefore you would just have people who weren't necessarily going to retire, and then that's kind of it. So then they would bounce right back into that same position, and then they could collect their pension on top of that. And when you're collecting your pension, you're not paying into it. So therefore it made that grow, and that's part of it. So what I know, I don't know if they talked about this at your meeting with MISD, but they're looking at shortening that to 6 months. The reason they made it 9 months is basically that's a school year. You have to sit out the entire school year. And then they talked about making that shrink to 6 months, or the other option that I know the IC has been pushing for is either allow the previous system, which is you can come back after 30 days, but you have, because the way that they stopped it before is you could come back, but then you're limited to 1/3 of your final average compensation. And so then you could come back after 30 days to do that, but you have this limit. And so one of the other options I know that I've heard is being discussed is either give somebody the option, you can retire under the 9 month, or you can retire under the 30 days. But if it's 30 days, then you're capped at that 1/3, because again, they're trying not to create a larger problem for the pensions, which they're on track to pay off and get caught up on versus all that. So that's kind of where it's at. And those are the options that I've heard that's discussed on those. So I know this coaching one, I believe this is like, they don't have to. If you were, say you're a teacher and coach and you retire from teaching, you would be able to continue in that capacity as a coach. So we'll see how that kind of shakes out as they go through that, but that's a general thing. Besides the teacher placement, which I know we've talked about, that's my main concern with the collective bargaining. But the last one on there, pupil transportation for a large district geographically, 35 miles compared to districts that are 4 miles and all that. This is a huge one for us because this would level the playing field, and we'll talk about in the budget how they're working to kind of level the playing field between everything else, but they're not touching the transportation. And that's a huge cost because we just going out the door, we have to go more miles in order to get kids. And that's just the way it is. And so they need to level that playing field as well. I mean, because you have some districts, I think it's Alpena, it's the largest geographically. They're 630 miles. And yet they're getting the same per pupil allotment, and they're covering a much greater area. The other thing, it's not on this list, but they did drop the Senate budget. So that's here. I haven't gone through it. I'll go through it and kind of give an analysis. Tomorrow, the House is supposed to come out with theirs. The highlights of it, right off the bat, instead of the $458 increase that to about 9608, they're proposing to move the foundation allowance to 9,700 per student, which would obviously is good. It's not quite keeping with inflation, but it's closer than the 5% increase they initially had. They do have, you can see some cost adjustments for MIPSers, that's the retirement system, in order to pay down some of those things. In order to adjust that, they are looking at, they're taking a different tack. Normally they do categoricals, and those are dollar amounts per pupil. They are now looking at a percentage. And this is another, I think, we had talked before about how ESSER funds were in multiples. So we had some districts that got, $500 per student for every dollar that we had, or there's about. This would now limit if it's an at-risk student, and that they have a whole category of how they determine that. Every district would get 11.5% to kind of provide extra services for those students. And then depending on what your threshold is, it could go up to 15.3% per student if they're at risk. So if you have, say you're a district where 90% of your students fall under at risk, you would be at 15.3% versus a district that's not. They would still get 11.5% per student. So much better balance than what we saw through ESSER funding and so on. Still, the expanded breakfast and lunch program still pays off the debt. For students, the big change from the governors on this is they're proposing to move the special ed foundation to finally get to 100%. This is decades in the making of. The state has a minimum that they're supposed to do, and that's in the Constitution, that they've never done. It was at 50%. They moved it to 75%. This will now, if this proposal goes through, it's 100%. The governor's proposal was to half that again. So it was to go from 75 to 87.5%. Then still pre-K education, there we'd need more details on that. They would fully fund bilingual education. They would have funding in there for child and adolescent health centers and mental health services. They would, some of this is just rise fees like MIPSers costs for retirement system, mental health grants, adult education, vocational education. They are seeing some savings because they are eliminating a lot of one-time items. And then probably one of the ones that you'll see some lawsuits on will be the reduction for the cyber schools, because they don't have transportation, they don't have brick and mortar buildings. So the proposal is to reduce that to 80%, so they don't get the full 100% funding. And then they are eliminating the matching funds for school resource officers. That was in the previous ones. Again, we'll have to look at details on that as they come out, to see what they're looking at. The school facilities will continue the looking at infrastructure and support for what can they, whether it's combining districts, sharing services or whatever. Again, mental health, I believe this is just kind of a continuation of the governor's proposal of funding those at 2 years at a time instead of 1 year at a time. They do have a student loan repayment assistance. So this is to encourage people to go into those things. So they would, if you work in a school district, especially high needs, they will help. They'll give you a monthly payment to offset your student loans if you're going into education or mental health, in order to help people pay off loans and provide a service to districts. Then they have obviously salary incentives program, other one-time programs for, these are basically for set, none of them would really affect us on that. And then they do have some continual funding for things, which again, we'll have to see what the details are on that. And 23 is the MIPSers reserve fund deposit. So that's what they're doing to pay that down, to continually offset that and shrink that. The interesting thing with that is, how do they kind of book that? They could do, I think I mentioned it before, for every dollar they put in the MIPSers and they pay down, it would actually free up about $1.40 in the general fund that we're not having to pay. Right now, what the state's been doing is pay down faster. They're not passing that along. They're just putting money in and to get it over a certain threshold, so it stays solvent, which is a good thing. It's just, how does that roll out to the districts? So that's the highlights, and we'll see. The house, I would imagine the house will be similar to this. And if it is, and they're along the same lines, you'll see a budget quickly. If not, then it'll get hung up. And what you'll see is all of those one-time programs, and all that will balloon in order to get votes for the entire budget. So that's the legislative update. Any questions?
Okay. Well, that ends our. Oh, no, sorry, we have committee updates. I know I am on the policy committee. We met last Monday. Basically, as we discussed those first reading items, those were the only items that were brought up to us. And then I know finance met prior to us. Do you have any additional to add?
I think as the topics came up, I already covered it.
Then, yeah, building service basically went over.
Building and site committee as well. So those were the committees that have met in the last month. And other than that, we can take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, meeting adjourns at 8:41. Good night.